Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier, and welcome back to another MLP reaction video. I'm kidding, I'm not actually Markiplier, and you all know that, and I'm dumb and stupid for even trying to copy his own intro. So, Grogar. We all know Grogar from the thumbnail. But, guess what? There's this story that I'm pretty sure you've heard of, I would say pretty popular fanfic, about Grogar, and like, it was a heartwarming story, pretty much. And it was like, it was pretty damn dark. It was like, had diamonds here on Apple Bloom, buttons for some reason, which was awesome to see. Scootaloo, Sweetabelle, and the Apple family, and they're all just kind of stuck in the barn because of like the snowstorm. And they had to they were like, okay, don't make sure Grogar doesn't appear, and Grogar appears, and wacky hijinks ensues, and dark stuff start happening, and it ended really surprising, and oh man, it was a great experience to have. I don't know if I ever rewatched it on the channel, probably won't, but I'm pretty sure this video that I'm going to watch is the sequel, is like some sort of sequel thing, a short little sequel, kind of like how the Candyman, the Something Sweet to Bite fanfic had there was a Candy Mare's Tale, which was a prequel, but it had just a little bit of sequel in it at the end. So yeah, we're gonna have some fun. Let's get it on. Apple Valley. Apple Valley.
Night had long since fallen, and now only the moon and stars cast light down upon the forest clearing.
Interesting.
The snow fell in a steady, soft pattern that left the trees and soil coated in a layer of white.
Yeah, that's all
the
just
celestial light and reflected a ghostly blue all around. 3 stallions sat around a campfire, the flickering flames making their shadows dance on the canvas walls of the tent that they had erected nearby. One, a unicorn, used his magic to lift the lid from the stew pot that bubbled merrily while suspended over the flames. Using a nearby ladle, he stirred the concoction within, filling the cold air with the good, warm smell of cooking food. He dipped the ladle, then brought it to his mouth to sip.
Just about ready now. A few minutes more, I think.
Thanks, Celestia, for small favours.
The younger earth pony beside him barely reined in a sneeze.
What do you mean, small favors?
Sooner I get some stew in my belly, the sooner I can get tucked in. Don't know about you fellas, but I'm bushed.
I feel you, man.
His companions nodded sympathetically, and the youngest of the 3,
Dude, Friday night, I stayed up till 6 o'clock with a friend. So you want to talk about being tired? It's 12:29 p.m. in the night.
Earth pony took a pull from the flask he pulled from his saddlebags.
Help me, please.
He exhaled to soothe the burn in his throat that followed.
That is the spot.
The unicorn eyed the receptacle greedily.
Did you bring enough to share, I wonder?
The dark yellow youth hugged the flask protectively.
Give me a break, Copper Star. This is the last I've got till we get back to Appaloosa.
Come on now, Bitterroot.
The dark brown one beside him gestured that he also wanted a sip.
Share and share alike. It's half swarming Eve after all.
That it is.
I think the point on the left is Copper Star.
Of bowls and began doling out the stew.
You should listen to Brown Jack better. If you know the stories, then you know that Apple Valley ain't the place to be stingy on Heartswarming Eve.
Bitterroot snorted, but ended up tossing the flask to his friend.
This whole backpacking thing for the holidays was your idea. You wanted booze? You should have packed some.
Why?
I'll take an apple cider.
Brown Jack winked as he took a pull.
If I were to drink any alcohol, it would be apple cider. Because, one, MLP had a whole episode with apple cider, and we had the Flim Flam Brothers Super Speedy Soda Squeezy 6000. So I would say that I have a strong connection with cider, even though I've never even tried apple cider. So yes, apple cider would be the one alcohol that I would drink.
Bitter rolled his eyes, even as he accepted the offered bowl of stew from Copper Star.
What was that you were saying? About hearth swarming in Apple Valley?
Copper chuckled as he traded Brown Jack's bowl for Bitterroot's flask.
You weren't that much younger than us, Bitter. You must remember what happened. It was only 5 years ago.
I
5
hadn't
years?
moved to
Oh my
Equestria back then.
5
Bitter
years,
started on his
Jesus.
stew.
My folks and I were still in the old kingdoms in the east.
Jack nodded slowly.
I'd always heard Princess Celestia tried to keep the whole thing under wraps. Makes sense that those beyond the border wouldn't have heard much about it.
Much about what?
Bitter leaned over his
To
stew bowl.
Grogar.
Copper Star started on his own bowl.
Well, it did used to be a hearth-warming eve tradition to tell a ghost story or two.
Ghost story?
Copper swallowed his mouthful
I like
and
ghost
eyed his
stories
younger
if they're
friend over
good.
the fire.
Alright, tell me something. Did you ever hear of a little town called Ponyville?
Bitterroot shrugged.
Ponyville.
Maybe once or twice. The elements of harmony live there, right?
Their bearers did, yes. 6 incredible mares. They saved Equestria more times than I can count in just a few short years.
Between you and me,
Copper's
I think
eyes
Twilight's
glazed
the best,
as he
the
looked
best
back
out of
into
the
his
main
memories.
6.
I never met them. Saw them in a distance once. Think it was at Princess Twilight's coronation.
He shook his head
Yo,
and ate
Twilight.
another bite of stew.
But yeah, they lived in Ponyville. It was a perfectly ordinary little village. Decent population, low crime rate.
The town was adjacent to Sweet Apple Acres, the top exporter of apples in southern Equestria.
Brown Jack chimed in through a mouthful of vegetables.
Yep.
Anyway,
Copper Star set his now empty bowl aside and leaned closer to the fire.
5 years ago, this very night in fact, the whole town population gathered together in the city hall for your standard hearth-warming eve rager. That night, a
They
great
did?
blizzard descended on the town. The next morning, when Princess Celestia arrived to wish holiday greetings to the ponies there, she made a rather grisly discovery.
What?
Bitter,
I don't think every pony was in the city hall. If I am correct to that, the one story, which you should totally check out, by the way, if you're watching this and haven't seen the other one, you're an idiot, because it's so damn good. But, like, I'm pretty sure that the Apple family, Buttons, and Diamond Chiar, and Silver Spoon were at the Apple family farm, if I'm not mistaken. I'm probably just being dumb.
also leaned forward, letting the fire's warmth chase away the sudden chill in his blood.
What did she find?
She found the whole town buried in snow.
Okay,
Were
yeah.
the villagers
yeah.
okay?
Copper Star shrugged, the firelight dancing in his eyes mischievously.
No idea. No one knows, seeing as how they'd all vanished.
Bitter's
Without
mouth
a
dropped open.
trace.
All of them?
Every stallion, mare, and foal. That's what Celestia found. A snow-buried ghost town. They never found hide nor hair of any of them. Not even the bearers of harmony. Come spring, when the last of the snow melted, and it was clear there was nothing left to find, Princess Celestia ordered everything demolished.
She
The
bailed.
town, Sweet Apple Acres, all of it. Razed the whole thing.
Raises
Bitter
barn.
reached for his bowl with shaking hooves.
What's that got to do with where we are?
He asked,
Because it's Grogar
already
from the
knowing the
thumbnail.
answer.
Because that land that was once Ponyville is now known as Apple Valley.
Copper
Apple
Star gestured
what?
around.
For all I know, we could be sitting on the very site where the city hall once stood.
His
Apple
magic
Valley.
held the ladle aloft.
Interesting.
Most you?
Bitter could only nod. Copper chuckled as he refilled the bowl.
It's quite a story, quite a mystery. No pony has any idea what happened to all those town's ponies.
That's not what I heard.
Brown Jack finally finished his bowl and
I
held
want
it
to
out
know
for
what
a
happened to
refill.
the Sweetie Belle.
I heard there
Bloom,
were
and
survivors.
Scoodle.
They don't
yes.
count.
Copper
The three
waved his
Kingdom
ladle
Crusaders.
dismissively.
And
For
Buttons.
one, they weren't even in town when it happened. They were up at the farm. And besides, they were
Oh.
just kids. They were probably traumatized.
Wait,
You're already
what
talking
are you
about it.
talking about?
Bitter took another bite. Copper sighed as he scraped the last of the pot into
You
his
drinking
bowl.
soup?
When Princess Celestia arrived that morning, she found 4
Ow.
foals. Apparently they'd been dumped at Sweet Apple Acres so the town's adults could really cut loose. From what I've heard, they were all in a state of shock and suffering from extreme exposure.
I would hate
The
to
farmhouse
be
and barn had been heavily damaged in the blizzard, and they'd spent most of the night wandering in the cold. It's a miracle they survived at all.
Brown
feel so
Jack
bad for them.
chuckled.
Come on, Copper, tell him all of it. You ain't a cult gonna have nightmares.
I ain't telling them because it doesn't bear repeating. They were kids, Jack. They used their imagination and crafted some fairy story to cope with losing their families.
Come on, Copper. Tell me.
Bitter was very much into the story.
Tell
at
the
this point.
truth.
Copper Star sighed and tossed the ladle into the empty pot with a hollow clang.
Fine. From what I've heard, the kids told Princess Celestia that it wasn't the blizzard that wrecked Ponyville and made everyone disappear. They said that some horrible monster had come on the wind, some
And we all
ancient
know.
evil that fed on the misery of others.
It's
They
Grogar
said that
from
it
the
had
thumbnail.
punished the town for forgetting the spirit of housewarming by spiriting them all away in the dead of night. They even gave it a name.
Grogar.
Grogar.
Chill wind gusted through the camp, sending snow and sparks spiraling into the darkness. The 3 stallions shivered and huddled closer to the fire until it subsided.
Load
Ew,
of
Grogar.
nonsense.
Copper
What a
muttered.
disgusting name.
Maybe not.
Bitter Root swallowed hard.
My grandmother in Germany used to tell me stories about a huge ram that would steal away fillies and colts that forgot the reason for hearths warming.
Hey, wait a minute.
She
The
had a
camera's
few
zooming
names
out.
for him. Father of Monsters, King of the Wendigos.
Santa
paused.
Claus.
Grogar was one of the things she called it.
He shifted in his seat.
She even told me of ways of protecting myself if...
Copper sniffed and looked at Jack.
See? What did I
Sniff.
tell you?
He rolled his eyes in Bitter Root's direction.
Kid stories.
Dude, sniff is such a fantastic word. Off topic, but dude, sniff is one of those top tier words. Like, if you walk up to me and you say the word sniff, I'm gonna laugh. Same with snack. Snack is also a very amazing word, not only to say, but just to experience. Like, say it with me. Snack. Also say it with me. Sniff. And they both start with SN, man. The SN words are great, man.
Bitter Root swallowed his retort.
What happened to the kids?
He asked instead.
2 of them got sent to live with family elsewhere in Equestria. I'm sure they're doing fine.
And
Yeah,
the other two?
yeah.
Heard they were so traumatized by what happened, they had to be locked away.
Brown Jack tossed his bowl to Copper, who
Locked
caught it
away?
in his magic.
Poor kids.
What do
Bad
you mean
enough
locked
they had
away?
to go through something like that, but on Half-Swarming Eve too?
Bad things just happen sometimes, Jack.
Copper shrugged as he returned the bowls to his bag.
What do you
Doesn't
mean
really
locked
matter
away?
what day it is.
Excuse me.
The 3 stallions
God,
jumped
that scream.
and turned as one to see a pony step out of the wood line. She was rail thin, like she had
What the? Rarity? Oh, that artwork. Oh my god. Oh, that is... no, thank you. That is unsettling.
hadn't eaten in days. Her coat was so white that it practically blended in with the snow. Her purple mane was ragged and patched in places, the bangs hanging loosely over her eyes.
Oh,
She
that is so
visibly shivered
unsettling.
as she reached for the trio.
May I warm myself beside your fire?
The mare's rough appearance quickly overcame the stallion's initial fright. Working together, they soon had the mare bundled up in every blanket and coat they had and placed as close to the
Give this
fire as they were
girl some
safely able.
food.
Sorry, ma'am, if you'd shown up a few minutes before, we would still have some hot stew.
Copper reached for his bag.
I can
Freak,
whip you up
man.
something real quick.
Dude,
No,
do it.
please.
What do you...
Don't bother.
What do you...
I won't be long.
The mare shivered again, despite her new accessories and location. She
Get some
snuggled her face
stew.
deeper into the covers.
You're being very kind. Very generous.
It's no trouble.
You know, I just love fantastic word choice in stories, and oh man, soda's ready. Okay. Oh,
Brown Jack looked around.
Did you get lost out here? No offense, ma'am, but you look like you've been out here a while.
approximately 5 years.
Yes, I have been lost for quite some time. And I fear that I will be lost for quite a while longer.
Her voice dropped to nearly a whisper.
I'm being punished, you see.
Punished?
Bitterroot raised an eyebrow.
Yes. And it's not fair.
Punished. It really
I'm
isn't.
not a bad pony. I always did the best I could for everyone I knew. I gave and gave as much as I could. But for a single act of selfishness, here I am.
She angled her head at Copperstar.
That's
You were
sad.
mostly right. Bad things do just happen sometimes. But I can tell you from experience that when they happen on hearthwarming, they can be so much worse.
Ooh.
The three stallions shared a look,
Beware of
but
Santa
it was Copper
Claus.
who spoke first.
Ma'am, I don't think we're following here. What exactly happened to you?
The mare sighed wistfully.
It was such a lovely party. The cider was flowing, and the gifts were being
Cider!
exchanged. I had just stolen a kiss under the mistletoe from darling Thunderlane,
Ooh, Thunderlane.
and then
Okay.
She shivered again.
it got so cold. One instant all was cheery and warm. The next, the fires had all blown out and every pony's breath was misting in the air.
You're dead.
After
She was
that,
dead.
it's a bit fuzzy. I remember something enormous landing on the roof, and the windows all blowing in. I remember the howling wind and something else.
What a scary
Bitter
situation to
reached
be
out,
in.
meaning to adjust her blankets for her.
What was it?
Bells.
The mare whispered.
So many jingling bells.
Another rush of wind flooded through the camp, and this time the stallions shivered right alongside the mare. Bitter's hoof touched an exposed stretch of her coat, and he yanked it away as though he'd been burned.
Yeesh! You're still ice cold!
Oh, yes. I'm always so very cold now. Most days I can't remember what warmth felt like at all.
She reached a hoof toward the fire, so close that the flames were practically licking her flesh.
I really do appreciate you three being so generous with me, though. It's been a very long time since any pony treated me like a lady.
How long?
5
Brown
years?
Jack chuckled nervously.
Don't say 5 years.
Ma'am,
Copper Star took a step backwards.
Oh, she doesn't
what did you say your
remember.
name was?
How very rude of me. Here you all are, acting like perfect gentle stallions. And I'm forgetting my basic manners. I suppose 5 years of frozen hell will do that to you.
She
5
looked up
years.
and tossed her ragged bangs back, exposing her face to them at last.
Rarity.
Eye sockets were gaping voids of darkness.
Oh!
Tears ran down her emaciated face, all the way down to the rictus grin that stretched across her lips.
My name is Rarity.
Oh!
Another chill wind blew through the camp, and the three stallions'
I'm chilling
attentions
myself.
were torn from the horrifying spectre before them by another rather shocking development. They were no longer alone.
What do you...
The clearing was filled with ponies, stallions, mares and foals, dozens and dozens of them. They were all painfully thin, their ragged coats stretched tight over their frames. Each wept from empty sockets,
Where's
each
Twilight?
grinned with painful tightness. They stood still, save for the shivers that racked their bodies every few seconds.
God, what a horrible
It was a
existence
mistake
that
coming
must
here
be.
tonight.
Rarity told them, as she rose and shed their blankets and coats.
He wouldn't take us with him, you see. We weren't even worthy enough to aid him as his other helpers do. He left us here. Left us to freeze, to ruminate on our sin, even in the height of summer. He rendered us unknowable, so that none could see nor hear our pleas for help.
Ooh.
It's only tonight, on our swarming eve, that we can be seen, that we can be heard,
Oh wow. Oh god, I gotta charge my
that we
Chromebook.
can
That was close. My Chromebook almost died. That was scary. Anyway, back to the story.
be known.
Why tonight?
Bitter asked through chattering teeth, looking
Because
desperately for an
Grogar.
escape route should these winter nightmares make a move towards him.
Because tonight's the night he comes to check on us, of course.
Ugh, that's. Ugh, I don't
Rarity
like that.
stepped into the fire, but the flames seemed to pass through her entirely. She shimmered in the steam and the smoke, like a mirage in a frozen desert.
You'd better watch out.
The next gust of wind
Better
brought a new sound.
not cry. You
multitude
better not pout.
of
You better not
jingling
shout. I'm telling you
bells.
why.
Every pony in the tent, now!
Copper ordered.
Santa Claus
Brown
is
Jack
coming
and
to
Bitterroot
town.
said nothing in reply. They followed without question. Once all was safe inside, Copper's magic yanked the door's zipper closed with such force that it broke off entirely. The three stallions huddled together in the center of the tent as the ringing bells grew louder and louder.
Oh! Okay, that actually kind of scared me. Oh man, I was about to make a joke about that one SpongeBob part where Patrick, like SpongeBob, SpongeBob Slam Patrick's like, what's claustrophobia? And SpongeBob's like, that means he's afraid of Santa Claus. I'm experiencing some claustrophobia right now.
Something huge
Oh.
struck the earth beside them with such force that, just for an instant, all three were lifted wholly into the air by the impact. Bitter started, but Brown Jack's hoof very nearly caved in his face before he could get another word out. The trio looked at each other with
freak.
wide, terrified eyes
Oh,
as
freak,
the
man.
thing began walking around their tent with slow, heavy footsteps.
Oh, freak, man.
Each step shook the ground and was accompanied by a litany of ringing bells. The beast passed between the tent and the fire, filling the stallion's visions with the flickering shape of something enormous,
Please, no.
Something.
Please, don't.
with a pair of long, curved horns stretching from its head. They watched
Have
in
mercy.
horror as it leaned down toward the tent's door and sniffed. The air in the tent
Sniff.
suddenly became that much colder, and they held their collective breath as the fabric where the zipper was supposed to be began to push inwards.
No.
Bitter tried
Don't
to
say it.
choke
Don't
out.
say. Don't say it.
The metal slide began to give,
No.
revealing
No.
a
No. No.
gigantic
No. No.
black hoof crowned in midnight blue fur.
No. 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 No.
Good Queen Platinum, last look out on summer sun celebration.
My man.
Bitter finally forced the song from his mouth. The hoof froze at once.
All ponies were gathered there, one from every nation.
My
He
man.
sang louder this time, gesturing at his companions to join him.
My
Pepper Star and
man.
Brown Jack eyed each other warily, then quickly joined in.
Brightly shined the sun that day, when heat some said was cruel.
Though the ponies found their way, sharing a good meal.
Yes, dude.
In
No.
a clover by my side, if thou knowst it telling, yonder peasants who are they, where and what their dwellings. Princess, say all live these hence, far beyond the mountain, some beyond the forest fence, past Celestia's fountain. Bring all to me and bring wine, bring those ponies hither, thou and I shall see them dine, when we bend and
spells Robin laid again, and Joker got away. Hey!
Forth they went together, through the
Reminds me of that one
wild
Amazing
lament
Gumball
and the
Christmas
fiery weather. Princess, now the dark arrives, and the wind blows stronger. Fills my heart, I know not how. I can go no longer.
I can do
On my
anything.
footsteps, dear, tread thou where I have trod. Through friendship
God, this
we
is taking a
have
while.
no fear.
Let's pause here for a second. Oh my god, this song is taking a while, and I swear this has been done before. This reminds me of another Christmas story. I forgot what it was called, but I swear there's this one it was 2 hours long, and there's this one singing part that I swear that lasted for like 3 to 4 minutes, and they did it like twice. I'm just like, why? Why? Like, can we get the abridged version of this, please?
Both shod and unshod. In his princess step he trod,
Probably good
where
lyrics.
the ground lay dinted, coolness in the
There's a
very
thing where I just
sod,
can't pay
which
attention to
her
lyrics,
hooves
no
had
matter how hard I try.
printed. Therefore ponies all be sure, wealth and rank possessing, those who bless all
And here we have the
races
full
free,
picture
shall
of
yourselves
Grogar
find
from the Sunday.
blessing.
As
Yeah,
the three
good smoke,
friends
idiot.
continued singing together, the intruding hoof retracted back into the darkness. The very air around them seemed to warm as their words grew in strength and volume.
Let's go!
The silhouette of the
Get
monster
smoked,
outside
idiot.
was suddenly cast not in flickering orange, but a deep violet hue. They heard a low, rumbling roar of anger or frustration. The beast bent at the knees
Fluttershy,
and
Rainbow
launched
Dash,
up into the air
Pink
with
Twilight,
an
Applejack.
accompanying rush of freezing wind and an almost violent ringing of many bells.
Oh, God.
They kept singing,
Stop
even
doing
after the
that.
sound of the bells had long faded into nothing, and they were nearly hoarse by the time the fire outside had returned to its original colouring. It was Brown Jack who reached for the door first. He looked back at his friends uneasily, but then steeled himself and pushed the fabric aside.
Ah.
The clearing was empty,
Ah.
their possessions unmolested. The
Unmolested?
snow had
What-
continued falling unabated,
What word choice is that?
obscuring any hoofprints that might have been left. But who was to say if their visitors were capable of leaving hoofprints at all? The fire
Oh,
had
my
burned
heart.
with such power and ferocity that it was very nearly embers already. Copper Star rounded on Bitterroot.
How did you know that would work? The singing, I mean.
Bitterroot shrugged and smiled
Like he
gently.
said.
My grandmother used to tell me that singing was the one thing that the father of monsters hated and feared above all else.
Yep.
Copper Star
See?
shook his head.
Kid
My
stories.
man.
Guess I'll be having more trust in kid stories from now on.
Same.
My man.
Brown Jack muttered. He found the discarded flask and tossed it back to his young friend.
Any chance of him coming back tonight?
Bitter shook his head as he returned the flask to his own pack.
I don't think so.
The embers of the fire flared for an instant, revealing a detail that all three
Please
had
let
missed in their
this stay
first
as a
inspection.
happy ending, please.
A single golden bell dangling from a branch overhead.
Aw.
Written around the edge in an intricate, repeating inscription were 3 words. For goodness sake.
Of
my God.
course. It wouldn't
Be
hurt to go
good
ahead
for
and get out of this valley
goodness sake.
tonight. Just in case.
Bitterroot's saddlebags were already on. His companions agreed, and in a matter of minutes, the campsite was torn down, the clearing cleaned of any
Yeah, let's
signs of
get the
occupation,
frick out of here.
and the 3 stallions were headed down the trail. They sang heartwarming carols together as Copper Star's magic lit the way. None looked back and saw the hazy shadows of dozens of ponies watching them leave.
I would look
None
back.
heard their soft cries of longing and misery be swallowed by the night air.
Oh,
None
man.
bore witness as they vanished into the ether, one by one,
That's a bittersweet
until
ending.
only one remained. None saw a tear appear as if from nowhere and strike the snow at her hooves just before this last shade faded into nothing.
That's so bittersweet. Oh, man.
The quiet stillness of a winter's night descended on the place now known as Apple Valley. But above that, just barely audible from where it hung in the trees,
What?
came the ringing of the single bell.
What?
For goodness sake.
For goodness sake. Oh man, dude. Okay. I would love to believe that eventually, just eventually, Rarity, Twilight, Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, Starlight, Tarkle, and Applejack, and Rainbow Dash, and anybody else I forgot, that they would eventually escape Grogar's grasp. But oh man, that was fantastic. That was a gloriously made 27 and 19 seconds fanfic. Just that spiciness. That was like, also, that was like genuinely horrifying and creepy. Like, whew, I've not felt fear like that. Well, I wouldn't say I haven't felt fear like that. This was, I haven't felt fear generally in an MLP fanfic reading in a while. It's been a while. It wasn't as, I wouldn't say it wasn't as fearful as some of the like other really good grimdarks like Rainbow Factory and freaking Light and Fleeting Darkness. God, that one was, oh man. And some of the other stuff out there, like Apple's Sleep Experiment, the cough because I have diseasophobia, and I had one example. I can't remember it though. Damn. Yeah, that was. I clap to you, sir.